Now then, 11th of February 2022. First post this year. I'm calling this video, and you better tell me the good news first, because I'm about to review Rush's 18th studio album, Snakes and Arrows, which was released on the 1st of May 2007, produced by Rick Raskulinecz and the band themselves, 62 minutes 52 seconds long, which was the second longest project the band's ever done, and it's recorded at Grandmaster Studios Los Angeles and the majority of it at LA Studios New York State. First thing to mention here is this CD's got 3 instrumentals on it, which is the only Rush CD with 3 instrumentals. It's a very guitar orientated album. Alex using 6 12-string acoustic guitars, mandola, mandolin, bouzouki, and lots of different electric guitars. Keyboards are less to the forefront. Geddy tends to use a lot of effects and the pedals rather than the keyboards, which is a good thing. But Neil does introduce some electric percussion into his playing. Neil's lyrics discuss relationships, his travels, the effects of extremism, his own personal beliefs. He's particularly influenced here by the American poet Robert Frost. And a quote of his, which is an epitaph written on his grave, and that is, "I had a lover's quarrel with the world." Neil still has that shadow of events in the late 1990s hanging over him. One other source of inspiration is for Alex, who met Dave Gilmour at a rock concert in Toronto prior to recording the album, and Dave encouraged Alex to write a lot more with acoustic guitar, which I think you can see on the album. Track 1, Far Cry. There's little wonder that Far Cry has been played by the band on every subsequent tour after it was recorded. All 4 in fact, because it's a sensational opener. It came together easily, a great day, quoted by Geddy. It's just a fantastic up-tempo rock track with virtually everything thrown in. Great riff, great midsection, great solo, great verse and chorus. It starts like a rocket and finishes like one, with its defining riff pounded out throughout the track. Lyrically, Ian Neil is on 2 levels, one a personal and one a more macro level, a more wider society level. On a personal level, Neil refers to being ahead of the wheel. Similar quote as in How It Is from Vapor Trails. He refers to shoulder to the wheel, i.e. the purpose of the daily grind. Neil obviously feels heavily connected to his past and how differently things have turned out to what he expected. On a more micro level, he considers other wider consequences of events in society and out in the world as a whole. His only conclusion being they are a far cry from what was anticipated and what was promised. However, he feels he can deal with it, but is conscious that his generation has missed an opportunity to make a better fist of everything. There's no portion of blame, just disappointment that the world hasn't lived out to his and everybody else's expectations. It all could have turned out better. Brilliant start, stunning track. The second track is Armour and Sword, and this piece gives the listener a clear insight into a lot of Neil's thinking on the CD, and is also best explained by a quote from Neil himself when he says spiritual yearnings are natural to many people, and may give them solace or hope. But extremists are not content with faith, i.e. the army. They must forge it into a sword. For me, that is the exact point of the track. There is also a connection to the previous piece in the influence a child is under and the damage that can be done from one generation to another with extremist views, particularly from them who should know better, but for their own misguided reasons they pursue their own extremist cause. Musically, it's a very solid piece. Acoustic beginning, Dave Gilmour influenced. The heavy solid riff, and then both, and that and the acoustic both alternating throughout the piece. Decent midsection and great changes of pace with its decent melody and chorus. Pessimistic in its approach again, but it serves its purpose and makes it point well into why one generation can let down another in terms of its cultural and religious beliefs. Track 3, Working Them Angels. When I first read Neil's book Travelling Music, about 2005, I knew that the lyrics at the front of the book would eventually appear in a track on a Rush album. Thus I tried to imagine how Geddy would turn these lyrics of Working Them Angels that appeared on the front of the book into a chorus, into a melodic chorus and bass. What I couldn't anticipate was how superb they would eventually be. I love this piece of music. Working Them Angels is a phrase Neil and his friend Brutus picked up on their motorcycle travels across the USA, and it refers basically to riding your luck. Quoting Neil again, a certain level of risk in life seemed worthwhile for the promised return. The track is a journey down memory lane, references to the Wounded City, New York, Moving Pictures album, recorded in England, cycling in Africa, and learning the rudiments of drumming from his teacher in St. Catherine's. Musically, fantastic chorus and verse from Geddy, with a massive guitar soundscape from Alex, elevating part of the lyric at precisely the right moment, i.e. the biggest guitar chords when Moving Pictures is mentioned, affirming the importance of that album to the band. Then Alex solos on the mandolin, and we hear Neil, the best percussion parts on the CD. Love it. An anthem for our lives. Track number 4 is called A Larger Ball. This is a gentle, passionate expression of the inequality faced in the world by some individuals. The unfairness that can exist in life. Written after Neil's African bike trek in the 1990s, it's set as some sort of vision where everybody has an equal share of the world's riches and there can be no inequality and justice for all. It's a song self-explanatory where the lyrics repeat themselves, known as a pantone or Malay verse. Alex and Geddy's music pursue a gentle, melodic, naive guise intertwined with a very nursery rhyme, spontaneous, catchy chorus, making an important point in a highly commercial way. Alex again plays a prominent role, musically layers of different sounds and textures with his great guitar sound. Nice, well written, I can see others covering it. One little point here though, Neil is a far cry lyrically in his thoughts from say 1976 when he wrote 2112. Track 5 is Spindrift. A track I've viewed as pretty average. However, when applying a bit of thought and looking at it closely, I've looked at it in a different light. I've looked at it as what he's trying to achieve, and does it do the job? And the answer for both questions is yes. I look upon it now in a totally different light. The idea for the track comes from the last line in the Robert Frost poem, The Lesson for Today, in which he states, "I had a lover's quarrel with the world." As the waves crash in from the western shore and the icy wind blows from the east, two unreconcilable forces meet each other, and our narrator is obviously frustrated and annoyed. Whether it's because of unresolved problems, unfulfilled goals, or his unfulfilled desires or needs, we won't find out. Who cares what our narrator thinks, although he believes himself to be true? Neil is in a battle he knows he can't win here, and is utilising the force of nature to represent the might of the opposition he is facing, for he longs to break the deadlock. Music of the piece is set up in very unconventional style for Rush. Alec adopts a musically wailing, antagonistic style theme, which controls the opening bars before a gentle, more persuasive style is introduced during the midsection. Then finally it concludes with a more hostile feel. It seems our storyteller feels he is back to square one. A great example of Rush in harmony here with the lyrics and the feeling of the music. We'll give the song some overdue praise now. Does it do what it says on the tin? Yes, it certainly does. Track 6 is The Main Monkey Business, and the first of the 3 instrumentals on the album. The title comes from a conversation Geddy had with his mum. He's up to some monkey business, the main monkey business. They recorded the piece together on the floor of the studios at Air because they wanted to give it a more spontaneous feel. It had become a painstaking song to write, arrange and record. A gentle acoustic and electronic intro leads to the main riff, and another heavier riff follows, helped on its way with a great winding bass line, and Alex experiments with layers of different sound and different guitar styles above the solid foundation from his bandmates. About 3/4 of the way through, we have a little break before the main themes are established again. Great piece, great instrumental, fantastic musicianship from all 3, and I must admit it's particularly good when you hear it live. Track 7 is The Way the Wind Blows. A percussion intro leads into a classy blues guitar section, after which Alex introduces a grinding heavy riff, which alternates with a gentle melodic chorus. Midsection, another bluesy solo, then it's full steam ahead with a forceful riff and verse to the finish line. Massive drum parts, great bass, and piles of full-on guitar, especially in the chorus and verse sections. Lyrically, with Neil, we're on familiar ground again. Neil's making practical use of nature as a metaphor. If our young grow up with extremist values and influences, they can only develop that way. Neil uses the trees alongside the Great Lakes and in Newfoundland that bend to the force of the wind as an example of being oneself while standing up to extreme pressure. There is a connection with Armour and Sword and Far Cry here, our narrator thinking one generation failing another. It appears to Neil that there is some sort of conspiracy from all sides to keep the mistrust flowing. There is also shades of subdivisions here, some promotion of individuality, that solitary pine bending to outside force, still be yourself, survive groupthink, After all, it's a whole wide world of superstition, something you shouldn't believe in anyway. No solutions, only conflict here. Thoughtful piece of music, joined up thinking with other pieces on the CD, and it shows you Neil's overall thinking. Track 8 is the second instrumental on the album, and it's called Hope. A short 2-minute, 2-second piece, acoustic guitar instrumental by Alex. A melodic piece, both spiritual and passionate. The title comes from the word hope in the chorus on the next track on the album, Faithless. It was done in 2 takes on a 12-string guitar and written by Alex alone. My opinion is if that's all it takes for Alex to deliver something like this, I'd love to see him release a far bigger collection. Track 9 is the majestic Faithless. Here Neil decides to come clean, inform the listener of his personal views on religion and faith, and hereby create some of his most profound emotional lyrics. He expresses his own beliefs, never failed to forget this is a man who has faced some very tragic events in his life and is still living in the aftermath. He has derived some very alternative views. He has thus his own spirit level to guide him, independent, free thinker, who can make up his own mind, free and without cohesion and pressure from the outside influences and world, i.e. the marketplace and the temple. Neil believes in hope and love. To him are more concrete values to put your trust in, rather than that spirit in the sky, which he can't accept. This opinion is reinforced throughout the song by the repetition of the line, and that's faith enough for me. Indeed, the piece concludes with a statement repeated 3 times, underlying his main point. The line and all the shouting voices try to throw me off my course, some by sermon, some by force. It's just a right numbers example of how strong his beliefs are and how dramatically they have been forged. Musically, it's another masterstroke from Alex. That full guitar palette of a soundscape with different sounds and textures, impelling the song on its course. Compelling riff, some really well-positioned electric strong string accompaniments, especially when Geddes sings, I've got my own spirit level to guide me. Brilliant. Was one of Geddes' best verses and chorus lines, an absolute Rush classic. 10 out of 10. A concise statement for not bending in the wind here. Be that stone in the river. Stay put. Don't compromise your values. Few bands can ever attain this level of music. It's peerless. Track 10 is Bravest Face. The track begins in a similar style to Faithless. Acoustic guitar keeps returning for the chorus. Again, the verses we hear acoustic guitar, and the verse sort of like gets a bluesy feel. Nice little midsection building up to the chorus before an acoustic and vocal ending. Lyrically, not everything appears to be what it actually is, not what it says on the tin. Lyrically here, not everything appears to what it actually is. I like that show where they solve all the murders. That don't happen in real life. I like that song about a wonderful world, gives a false impression. In the chorus, various examples are used to justify this point. Acid tongue in the softest voice. Could it be that Neil isn't totally over his past and he is also giving a slight false impression? Displaying a different outside veneer, so he puts on that bravest face to others. Just a thought. Thoughtful, great composure, well played piece. I like it. I might have rushed Bravest Face a bit because I just wanted to come to this. When I first played this CD, I used to get in my car and drive down the motorway, put the CD on and get the full sound effect of it. And this was always my standout track, track 11, Good News First. And the whole point of the track, for me, is you're in sort of like suspended animation, just waiting for that fantastic middle eight. A middle eight, what Alex described as passionate, glorious, acoustic, and it's a fantastic melody and vocal, and it just brings that one little section, brings the whole, I think it's Rush's finest middle eight, and it just brings it all to life, absolutely. Heavy guitar and bass, a picking little riff, heavy drums, and we hear that mellotron background, what just lifts the whole thing and brings the whole thing to life, and it makes it a fantastic piece of music leading up to that stunning middle eight. Lyrically, Neil is using the same trick as in Spindthrift and The Way the Wind Blows. He's having a discussion, but not with an individual. He's swimming against the tide here with a whole mass of people. He's emphasising his point in Far Cry. It hasn't turned out how we wanted to. And if we keep this up this way, there's bad news around the corner. And if it don't bother you, like he says with some people, it should. Because it's not going away. So, like us all, when we're asked the question, good news or bad news, we all want the good news first. I suppose once you get the good news, you can keep a braver face on it. Brilliant, outstanding piece of music. I love it. And in fact, once I'd written this appraisal of it, the first thing I did was play it and listen to it again, because I just love it. No, and I've had no problems with light here, so you're going to have to excuse me. I've done that much of it, I'm not going to turn back now. The next track is Malignant Narcissism, the third instrumental on the album, thrown together at the end of the recording. When producer Nick Raskolinovich was recording Geddy practicing on a lone Jack Pastorius bass. They like what they hear. Neil added some drums on a small kit what he had left, and then it was left to Alex to finish it off. And I think that's the whole point of why I like Alex on this album. It's a classic example of him elevating a track beyond the norm, and it's what he basically does with every piece on the album. He's just made it that bit better by his input. Fantastic 2 minutes of instrumental music, and I love that little boom bass note at the end. Great, and it comes over well live. The final track on the CD is We All Done. A 4-minute lament on the drudgery and repetition and frustration we face in our daily grind. Something for me here on the lyrics of the album seems to be nagging at Neil. He expresses how we will deal with it by holding on. Of course he recognises slamming the door and running won't work. The problems are still there. It's also a piece about persistence, following your ambition, and be determined to succeed. Musically, it's a dual piece of music, a track driving itself, getting quicker during the chorus, with Alex guitar licks, great bass line as always, and drums. One of the more average, I might say, on the album, but a final statement, even with all the consequences of the events discussed in their lyrics. One must get that shoulder to the wheel and carry on. Looking at the lyrically content of the album all, it's a more appropriate, quite appropriate ending. But is it needed on the album? That's my question. Is it one track too many? And are the 3 instrumentals one track too many? Snakes and Arrows was a commercial success, reaching top 10 album status in the US, Canada. I think the UK got to 13 just outside, and it did well all over Europe. And generally speaking, was well received by the critics. The album generated Rush's most successful tour to date, with them playing 114 shows across the USA, Canada, Europe, and for the first time ever, a concert in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I must say I'm a big fan of the album. Reviewing the CD, I watched 8 of the tracks being performed live on the tour DVD, and one of the most notable things for me was that Geddy spent a lot more time playing the bass and not on the keyboards, which is a definite plus thing for all us Rush fans. It could be considered a bit too long, a bit bulky, and I think it would be more accessible if a couple of the tracks was dropped. Say Hold On and one of the instrumentals. Nevertheless, there is no getting away from the fact there are a lot of Rush classics on the project. The production sounds great, the musicianship is outstanding. It's a recording where the band are still relevant, original, and have a lot to say. Star of the album for me is Alex. It's just, his sound is brilliant, and it just brings certain tracks to life. It's immaculate timing and massive chords just bring everything to life. It's absolutely brilliant. Just like Grace Under Pressure, Alex is all over this album. That's not to take anything away from the other two, of course. Neil's lyrics are as profound and as pertinent as ever, and Geddy comes up with some fantastic melodies and choruses. Presentation of the album. Obviously it's you, Sam, again, and as always with photography by Andrew McNaughton. There's some great images depicting tracks in the CD booklet. The front cover is a painting titled The Leela of Knowledge by Harish Johani, and the title is inspired by an ancient Indian game of karma, snakes and arrows. Best lyric on the album. I've got my spirit level for balance to tell me if my choice is leading up or down, and all the shouting voices try to throw me off my course, some by sermon, some by force. I will argue that in the background be a lot of his words of the album are still the tragic events of the late 1990s. That shadow still hangs over him, and he's still affected by it. Read many little known facts. But the Mellotron in Good News First was a long time between drinks. It was last used in the 2112 album on Tears, and there's a nice little cover version of Tears by Alex in Chains, what I discovered. It's worth a listen. Follow on reading, travelling music. Well worth a read. I used it to reference a lot of the stuff here, and all the lyrics of Working Them Angels are at the front. Well worth a read if you haven't read it. Right, I'm nearly there. I've rushed a bit at the end. We're trying to get it all in under half an hour. That's another review wiped up. I think it's my 10th, I believe. So see you again in a while. I've got a bit of work to do at home. I've got my kitchen to do, so I'm going to be working on that rather than doing these. But I'll be listening to Rush while I'm doing it. Right, stay healthy, keep safe, look after yourself. I'll see you in a few months.